Morning. If you're here for underwater basket weaving, it's the wrong room. My name is Rob Davis. I'm the Director of Digital Identity Services at TIAA. A little bit of background. I've been with TIAA for just over 6 years. I have about 23 years in the identity industry. A large part of that was with a very large web access management product, now called SSO. For those older folks that have been around, they know it as another name. So my talk today is about our experience moving from SSO to PingAccess and some of the interesting things that happen along the way, and some of the reasons why. So I usually put the slide up. This is like the Pinocchio slide, right? What I'm going to tell you is probably true. You can take it as you will. I think it is. Some people that I know that are here, some people that work for me are here, and they can corroborate most of this story. So today I'm going to go through just a number of items, how identity plays a key role with TIAA, actually switching to PingAccess, and from there defining a migration path, not only for our external customer facing side, but the internal workforce side as well. Some of our environment upgrade requirements. I want to go through just a couple of core scenarios as you're dealing with moving from a legacy web access management solution to PingAccess or the Ping Identity platform. And I'll share with you our scheduled completion dates, which we're fairly proud of. And then hopefully we have some time for questions. So the next one, right? All right, so identity, it plays a key role. At TIAA, we have a number of, as a regulated firm, we have a number of areas where identity does play a key role. My group in digital identity services, the digital part reflects where we are in our organization. We report up to the Chief Digital Officer, not the Chief Information Security or Security Officer, which is an interesting place to be in a company as you're dealing with identity. So customer experience and digital innovation play a really big role in our area, and less so the regulations and your controls for breach or risks of breach play a little less role of importance when you're dealing with the digital side. So in customer experience, for our customer side, single sign-on is critical. Not only single sign-on for applications and the number of applications that we provide to our customers, but also the way that they access those applications. Not only can they log in through our website or a mobile app, but they can also come from their benefits side, as TIAA is a retirement site. They can come from their benefits page in their company to our site to see their retirement savings. So single sign-on it plays a key role in customer experience. We do our very best to synchronize and unify all of the data for each profile. We have a number of different customer types or identities that we deal with at TIAA. As a retirement company, we have a number of retirement plan administrators. We have a number of the actual customers. We have bank customers. We have brokerage customers. So synchronizing that data goes a long way in providing not only single sign-on, but that customer experience and providing that information in one view for the customer. More recently, around digital innovation, we've obviously mobile, plays a big role here in digital innovation. Face ID, Touch ID, biometrics is, they're sort of the mainstream now. But the IoT, Alexa, Google Home. I had an interesting view of a virtual reality demo that our larger group put together, all based on REST APIs, open, and some of these open standards. So we're really starting to bridge that area. We talk about hybrid IT, one of the reasons why we're talking about going to PingAccess is because we want to support going to the cloud, Amazon, Azure, and other cloud providers. So with that comes regulation. We obviously need stronger authentication. This takes the form of multi-factor, which hopefully reduces the risk of breach. Regulations in terms of customer consent. In our industry, e-delivery is a form of customer consent. You cannot deliver documentation to a customer electronically unless they've specifically said, deliver this to me electronically. And we like that because it costs less to deliver electronically than it does for paper. As we talk to other potential customers in our area where we're going out for bid, the biggest question they ask is your data encrypted? It seems kind of a silly question to ask, but I mean, it is important. So data encryption in terms of regulation and in terms of how our customers feel about how their data is stored. So in the risk of breach in this quadrant, multi-factor plays a role in addition to multi-factor adaptive authentication, right? You don't want to provide a high friction experience every single time. It's not necessary. If you know who the user is, the device that they're using, and they have some history, adaptive authentication allows you to reduce the amount of step up that you would provide for them for additional authentication. And then, of course, access security, data encryption, and data governance all play a role in our risk of breach process. Our fraud governance and cybersecurity teams are in here. So as I said, we work with, my team exists in the digital organization, and we maintain very good relationships with our cybersecurity teams and our fraud teams, what we call enterprise financial crimes. So, to the heart of the matter, switching to PingAccess. I recently talked to a number of folks, and this is a repeat of the session that I had last night at the bar. For those of you who were there, they got the 45-minute, more liquid version of this. So I'll try to keep it as brief as I can. So some of the reasons why we're switching to PingAccess, one reason is performance. Our legacy system, the way we have it set up, at least in our internal application set, as we're moving to PingAccess, what we notice in our test results is that we're actually getting an increase of 25% in performance over our current SSO product, which is pretty good for our internal side. And our external applications are on par with what they are today. And part of the reason there is that as we implemented OpenID Connect, in addition to our step-up security, we traded a little bit of performance for the ability to control the delivery of the OpenID, the PingAccess token. But the nice thing is it was on par with our current secure login benchmark, so that we were happy about that. The second reason is simplicity. We're trying to move the company to open standards for a number of reasons. As I said, we're looking for open standards, open authentication standards. Our SSO uses proprietary tokens. The proprietary tokens work in a very monolithic way. As you move into mobile, as you move into cloud, while you can use those tokens, they become a lot more cumbersome. So it's kind of like you can take your security badge with you, but this security badge is actually a 25-pound concrete brick. That's the way we kind of view the existing SSO token. So we're looking for small size security tokens, very nimble, small JSON-based tokens that are extensible and readable. Legacy tokens from legacy WAM, SSO tend to be proprietary, tend to be encrypted. They're not easily readable. So that leads to more overhead for doing things in the application that you would normally be able to do with an open token, not to be confused with open token, the ping standard. So the open standard allows us for cross-domain and cross-channel authentication without a lot of infrastructure overhead. We can transport that token across different domain scopes. We recently went from TIAA-CREF.org to TIAA.org, and the OAuth token provided a number of advantages there, which I'll get to in a little bit as we talk about that opportunity. The open standard, the JOT token inside of the OpenID Connect token, allows us to do some interesting things with entitlements. OAuth is a authorization token, so we're actually extending that token to allow for some TIAA-based entitlements, so that can be transported from our applications to, say, a cloud-based application or a single-page application to transport entitlement to those disparate apps. And of course, the open standards allows our enhanced web service platforms to use the open authentication standard. So we're going from, say, DataPower to MuleSoft, while DataPower also uses OAuth for service validation. We can integrate MuleSoft directly with PingFederate the same way with very little friction. Of course, we talked about cloud. Everybody wants to move to the cloud. I'll share just a very short story. About 4 years ago, I attended one of our infrastructure offsites, and the head of the infrastructure team that was planning to move to cloud said, "We're going to take all of our applications and we're going to lift them and shift them to Amazon." Okay, great. We're going to take all of our, our DataPower and SSO, and we're going to lift and ship to Amazon. And I raised my hand. I said, "How are you going to do SSO?" "Well, we're just going to lift and shift and put it to Amazon." Like, that doesn't work. We know it doesn't work. There is a lot of coordination to be done moving an infrastructure like that, a legacy web access management infrastructure, to the cloud, if you even want to do that at all. If you want to move it to another cloud and have the applications reside in a different cloud. So again, open standards play a key role for us here, where we can authenticate on-premise, send the user to Amazon, to a single page or an application. We don't necessarily have to move the entire identity stack or the authentication stack to Amazon. It gives us freedom of choice. Whereas if you were to move an application that was protected by a legacy web access manager like SSO, you would have to have the entire stack there in order for it to perform. So the open interfaces, the open interfaces actually allowed us to provide capabilities around multi-factor within the authentication set. There was someone talking about that yesterday. You were talking about that yesterday. You had a question about how do you do authentication the way that the legacy SSO does, and at the panel yesterday. And so we have done a similar function, and I know Ping, I think, is looking to do something similar. But we did this for the main reason why, as we had the opportunity to move, and I'll discuss in a second, we wanted to provide a similar experience to the authentication process to get into PingAccess and not have our applications do a lot of rewrite. So we are going to require our applications to do some of this rewrite, but it didn't have to be at the time that we were migrating. So we chose to put this functionality up front to make it less burdensome for the application. And so using the open interfaces allowed us to do that. And of course, the open interfaces allow us to create policy, user administration and whatnot through the existing APIs, which is always a good thing. We've been asking the legacy providers to do this for years, and I think they've just released a couple of functions now, so a little bit behind. And of course, everything is extensible. I call PingFederate our Swiss Army knife of functionality. It can do pretty much anything. My chief engineer can pretty much do anything with PingFederate, whether he thinks so or not. I think he can. So the next step, defining a migration path. So we have two scenarios where you have your internal workforce applications, we have our customer applications, and then you have a common enterprise. You have a common enterprise theme to follow throughout your migration path. I'm going to start on the common enterprise theme because I get this question asked a lot. did you choose an agent model or a gateway model? We chose an agent model. I think back even when we started with Ping 3 years ago, my team had a discussion. Do we want to support the agent or the gateway? And there are certain advantages to both. And one of the reasons why we chose the agent model was simply because the agent model is a known entity to us. The legacy system we use today has an agent model, right? So we know how to stand up an application with a web agent. We know how to configure it. We know how to operate with it and onboard and integrate further applications with it. A gateway, not so familiar with, so it would be a learning curve. So more of a risk decision to be made. We can go faster with a model that we're familiar with. This is part of our opportunity. Using a swing method for migration from the SSO to the PingAccess. So we had an opportunity because some of these applications that we have, both externally and internally, have older web servers, older infrastructure, physical to virtual. So the opportunity we had was for them to move from one environment to another. So when we started building out this new environment, we said, no SSO here. This is going to be completely PingAccess. So as the applications would migrate, they would come over to a ping-only infrastructure, which was true for the customer apps and mostly true for the worker apps. So I'll start with our worker apps. In terms of migration, we started with sort of a one-off approach. Every application that we've integrated with an SSO web agent, we track, we know, we talk to our project managers, would reach out and say, when do you want to schedule an upgrade to PingAccess? And it usually involved migrating the application to either a different web server or a different environment, physical to virtual. So that was just a matter of engaging application owners. And for the most part, we are mostly done with that. But the interesting thing about the worker apps, you hit a number of combination of application types, right? Simple to complex with some custom criteria, which I'll go over in another slide. So in our customer apps, the customer app migration was included as part of a strategic approach in another project. So this was an opportunity for us, which I'll talk about. So the customer side for us is a more standardized application environment, meaning everybody has a software framework that they deliver into, a standard set of web servers, a standard set of app servers. They have a number of containers. The network configuration is fairly straightforward. So they conform to a unified integration model. That's not to say that every application was built the same. Every application was built very, very differently, and that became some of the challenges for us. So in our environment upgrade requirements, we needed business support, right? Gaining that business support and building momentum for us without even having the product PingAccess in the environment. This started for us about 4 years ago. We started off with a number of test proof of concept projects with OpenID Connect and OAuth, cloud-based apps, where we had a number of just custom agents installed to do OAuth and OpenID Connect authentication in the cloud or on premise, just to show our senior leadership what this means, how transportable it is. And so after gaining some of that momentum, illustrating the success of how transportable these applications can be across our internal networks and our external cloud providers, PingAccess was brought in. I mentioned the opportunity to initiate our activity was key. We had a brand change 2 years ago, and we thought we were ready to do PingAccess. At that point, we were not. The brand change came with it a bunch of political motivators that were just not, when I say political, more visibility on the brand and marketing success side that we didn't want to impact if we had any impact. So the opportunity that we had here to initiate the PingAccess migration was during a domain change, where we changed our company from TIAA-cref.org to TIAA.org, and with that came applications moving from physical to virtual hardware to upgraded versions for compliance. And as they did that, they came in from their legacy environments to a brand spanking new, non-SSO impeded PingAccess environment. And everything was great, and we just walked away, and it was perfect and hunky-dory. Not really. So next was identifying the applications, all those SSO integrated applications and legacy applications. We're a fairly small company, 18,000 workforce. Our customer base is around 8 million. So for the internal side of this, not too bad. We have probably, I'd say 200 to 300 internal applications to identify. That's not terrible. I heard someone say, 900 yesterday as one of theirs. I know in my previous job there was over 4,000 applications, and I think that number's up to 6,000 or 10,000 now. So identifying those legacy applications can be challenging. Internally, I think it's easier. Externally, as long as it's part of a consolidated framework, it's probably not as daunting. So a number of different migration paths. We talked about simple to complex. So our simple, straightforward migrations, these are SSO web agents to PingAccess. Either you take an application and you move it to a web server that has PingAccess on it configured, supply the headers. It looks and operates like it did before. Pretty straightforward. That was fairly easy for us, and I would say, for the most part, most of our internal applications operated this way. We had a couple of moderate integrations. This was our call center application. While fairly straightforward, moving to a new set of PingAccess agents did have some interesting integrations with federation and other connected applications. The call center app is sort of a jump-off point to 50 other applications. So you want to make sure that not only that if you can get as many of those 50 with PingAccess as possible, you also have to take into account that the ones that are not yet migrated, the ones that are still on SSO, still interoperate, whether you hit them first or you hit the call center app first. So that's why we named this kind of a moderate. And of course, we have another, we call it simulation mode or impersonation, where a call center rep can actually assist a caller, a customer, by logging on to their account on their behalf in read-only mode to see what the customer might see. So that was part of the federation. The complex was, believe it or not, the external pieces. What we found was, with great credit to my team and our QA group, our testing and our analysts, what I believe, and maybe it's a different story for them, but what I saw is that we were able to very quickly spin up the PingAccess, Ping-federated environment. The components came together, the glue, the code came together fairly quickly. There was a couple of road bumps along the way. Where we got in the ditch was where applications were customized to use SSO-based components. So a great example of that is the SSO session, the cookie, right? What we found is that in our software framework, the SSO session was being used for timeout. Every time you refresh a page, the SSO token changes, right? And they were using that to control idle timeout outside of the security system, which was interesting. And it had been a legacy piece of code that had been there since the 1.0 version of that code, and now it's 4.0, and it's still being used. Well, enter PingAccess. This SSO token is still being looked at. Applications are timing out in 5 minutes. Why is it timing out in 5 minutes? No idea. So we find that this code is sitting out there judging that token. So we had to make some changes to our network layer to provide them with a token that would satisfy their requests until the applications could remediate themselves out of that legacy functionality. Just as an example. So here's some core scenarios. I'm running late on time, I know, but I'll go over this very quickly. When you talk about the workforce apps, you're talking about moving SSO to PingAccess. On the right-hand side, the workforce identity providers to the service providers, you're moving away from the SSO authentication to a more native Ping Federate adapter. So we're removing additional functionality that we would use to support the legacy web access management, the legacy SSO, in favor of native components within Ping Federate, which was great, right? The less complex the environment is, the better. Similar on the customer IDP to the TIAA service provider, the same thing. The inbound assertions that are coming in needed to authenticate their SAML assertion against the SSO adapter, which we could then remove for native PingAccess. A huge, and that actually provided a lot of performance boost for us by doing that. On the workforce web apps, I mentioned the SSO to PingAccess agents, employing standardized approach, and the older infrastructure required web server upgrades. There's minimum versions required for PingAccess for a number of reasons. If you're not running, latest versions of Apache, just for the vulnerability closers alone, is a good idea. And then, of course, the customer web apps. I mentioned that we required a custom process to complete login and MFA or multi-factor routines, where we actually stop the user and ask them their device for risk, their history through our risk engine, and then once we were satisfied or they satisfied a second factor, we would hand them the token and they could continue on their merry way. So our scheduled completion, my team delivered on March 1st the customer application environment. This is external. Not reflective of the amount of time that it took to get us here from end to end. The build out took us about I'll conservatively say 8 months to build the PingAccess infrastructure and get it online and into production. But 3 years prior to that, building the momentum, getting the planning done, understanding what's required, contracts and the business cases. And the worker apps, well, we still have a number of worker internal applications. I mentioned those 50 that the call center app moves to, and a number of other enterprise applications. We're looking at the end of Q3 this year to completely remove ourselves from the legacy application set. And one addition is not only are we moving the legacy SSO environment, we're also moving from the legacy directory to Ping directory in Q3 as well. All right, and that's it. I don't know if we have any time for questions, so thank you. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
How did you find the licensing cost between the two products? Much different, same, a lot less, more?
Licensing costs. Yeah, I think I don't want to say they're cheaper. I don't know, how well you guys are at negotiating, but I think they're comparable. In terms of if you weigh in the type of the functionality you get from one product versus another, right? I find, at least in the licensing costs that I have, more value from what I have now. Does that answer your question?
So you paid more.
What's that?
So you paid more?
No. Yeah.
You talked about how whenever you were doing the worker apps, you talked to the application owners and migrated them one at a time. Did you guys have any shared web servers where you had multiple? So
Yes.
for example, we're doing something similar to this, and we have web servers that have 50 to 60 applications on these pretty massive farms.
Right.
And so that seems a little unrealistic for us to do each one of those. So what did you guys do?
We had a few of those. Good luck. No, it is a challenge. You do have to make sure that what I can say is that I would hope that those 50 to 60 are all using common attributes, common authentication. If you can if you can migrate the 50 all at once, either by installing an agent on top of what you have, and supplying the data, the attributes that they need in headers, that's probably the easiest way to do it. You're probably better off. Otherwise, you might have a more difficult conversation with them by moving them to new infrastructure, batches at a time. But if they have common access criteria, that you're in better shape there. I hope you are, because I've done those, and those can be hard. Yeah.
So did you use an integrator, or did you do everything in-house, or did you bring in consultants?
We did everything ourselves. Yeah. But that's a testament to the. Well, I mean, I have a great team. They know everything there is to know, about the environment and the product. They've been using it for a long time. But yeah, if you need help, I mean, of course we did have the support of, It was, yeah. I mean, it's my engineering group is dedicated to all things ping.
So you didn't have any of those tools that they have out there?
Not yet, but I have been talking to them, and it does make a lot of sense, because we do get into these situations where fat fingering and mistakes are made. Just the ability to move policy from one environment to another, it makes total sense. We're talking with them now because our integration team, our operations teams want to use those tools. They don't want to do the fat fingering. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. 2 separate environments. So PingAccess, Ping Federate, Ping Directory in one environment, and PingAccess, Ping Federate, and Active Directory. I don't own that, but in the internal environment. Yeah, they're completely separate. How do I handle swinging over the customer authentication? A lot of this. And we had the opportunity to cut them over during a release weekend. So our backup site comes online. We do all the changes to, the way we did this was a dark mode version, and we brought that online and then brought the backup site up to the same speed. So that happened over a weekend. Yeah. The build out of the dark site, though, happened over the course of a few months, but all applications were in that mode. So, yeah.
Did you use core blocks at all to help with facilitation?
We used Core Blocks was our SSO provider for SAML and for authentication. Yeah. So that, but not in after the fact.
Did we use token mediation on the PingAccess?
What's that?
Token mediation on the PingAccess?
No.
Okay, so you didn't have that hybrid model where you have to have single
Our original design was going to go with a hybrid model, right? Dates had slipped because the applications weren't ready, so that gave us enough time to plan for a full-on conversion. Make sense? Yeah, that's right. One big bang. They built an environment. You had a question?
Related to that, was there any transient architecture where you had both the SSO solution and PingAccess together?
No, not as such. Now we do have we have an application that's sitting in a state ready to decom that is still on SiteMinder SSO, and we've isolated that application using federation, and once that app decoms, we'll just shut the connection off. Yeah. Anything else? Good. Yeah.
Was integration with adaptive authentication or RPA part of this?
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Integration with any sort of risk-based authentication or adaptive authentication?
Yes.
Is that part of the project?
Yes. So we the legacy system wasn't tightly integrated with RSA Adaptive Auth. It was loosely integrated through code. So as we rewrote the new system, we added that custom piece of functionality to call out to the risk system. Again, not tightly integrated. We left it loosely integrated because as we move into a new orchestration decision platform, we want to keep those risk score contributors loosely coupled. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So from the time you contacted the first application to begin migration until the last application was migrated?
So internal apps.
Yeah, so both numbers?
We've done one as quick as 3 weeks, right? And we still have ones that we've contacted last year that still haven't been done. But generally, it's fairly straightforward because again, if they are the simple, right, and they have to move to new hardware or new virtual hardware, it's just a matter of finding them, installing the agent and finding them a home, setting up the attributes that they're used to seeing with the legacy, and then moving them over.
So for the ones that are still not migrated, is there a mandate or is there do they live on for a long time?
I hope not. We've set a mandate to have them done by the end of Q3, because by the end of Q4, we will not have a contract with that company anymore.
Okay.
Make sense?
There is a hard stop then.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have single sign-on between the non-migrated and the migrated apps?
Yes.
And so how are you solving that?
Federation. We're using federation between the two and using the core blocks adapter with that. Yeah. But we cheat in a little ways too, because some of that is silent sign-on. So you can log in through Kerberos with PingAccess, right? And then with SSO you can do the same. So it kind of makes it looks the same, right? You end up with 2 tokens, but you'd end up with 2 tokens anyway. Yeah.
So you sign on to both just so you get the two tokens, so you maintain consecutive.
Yeah. It's not a great experience when you have 2 tokens that are, you've got a ping federate token or PingAccess token, and then you've got a SSO token, right? two live in the same environment, but we've made adjustments to our Apache header space to accommodate it. Yeah.
And so how do you keep both tokens alive as well as log out, right? Because you take both of the log out.
Internal doesn't really matter. Yeah, the external side, there's some heart beating going on. But again, the SSO tokens that we use externally are isolated to one application, and they're handling any of the keep alives on their side using code. So when they log out of their main application, they kill the sessions in their other app. All right. Thanks.